All right. Got to bring in the Facebook groups. Got to let it breathe while we do that. All right. Got to wait for a couple green check marks. Hopefully they work. I know we had some issues with one of the Facebook accounts last night. There we go. Welcome into another episode of Broncos for Breakfast. And I am your host, Erick Trickel. Nick is unable to join us today as he's still dealing with stuff with the move. And if you guys tuned in last night, you would know that as he brought it up. But joining me this morning is Dylan Von Arx. Dylan, my man, how are you doing? What do you think of the win over the Bengals since you haven't had a chance to talk about it yet?
Yeah, I'm doing fantastic. First and foremost, I'm a little tired. I worked late during the game, so I had to catch a replay and write up an article at about, midnight 30. So that was fun. But in terms of the game, I want to say expected. That's a team you should beat. Doesn't necessarily move the needle for me, but hey, get them a little more confidence going into this matchup against the Eagles, who are a actual contender, and that's who I want to see the Broncos beat, not just a lowly Jake Browning led Cincinnati team.
Yeah, I mean after two back-to-back losses, obviously it's good to bounce back with that win, get your confidence going. It's good for the locker room, even though it was a game like as you said, they were expected to beat the Bengals, especially without Joe Burrow. There is definitely a weird or not necessarily weird, but there's definitely a talent difference between the Broncos and the Bengals and where they're at, especially without Joe Burrow. And so it was a game they should have won. It was necessary to win. And I'm with you. This is a good measuring stick for where the Broncos are. I mean, yeah, they have two losses to teams that are combined 6-2. They're both 3-1, both by literal last second field goals, which that's a good sign for the Broncos being a little bit better than some may think they are. But this is a real test, and this is a test that, and I was saying this last night, if they can go into Philadelphia and upset the Eagles, that could put them that can put them in such a good place with their confidence, in the locker room, all that when they come up to hit their what I think is the easiest part of their schedule, even with the traveling to and from London for the Jets the following week. Then you have the Giants, you also have the Cowboys, you have the Texans, the Raiders, you have a bunch of teams that are either bad or not meeting expectations this year following that up. So, starting 2-2, not ideal. But if they can upset the Eagles, then we could be looking at, 7-2, 8-2 here in a few weeks when we're getting it going into our first matchup against the Kansas City Chiefs. So there is a lot on this game, and it's a tough one. Going into Philadelphia, the Broncos' history with early morning games traveling to the East Coast isn't great. It's hard. It's been something that they've had issues overcoming. That's exactly what this is. Reigning Super Bowl champions, and there is a lot of talent all over the Eagles, but they are not an unbeatable team. Granted, they are undefeated. They're not unbeatable, and we've seen that over the first four games. When you actually go back and watch them, we've seen how teams can have success against the Eagles, where the Broncos can have success against the Eagles and potentially upset them. Do I think that's likely? No, I think Denver's going to fall short in this one. I do think it's going to be a better and closer game than what a lot of other people think. I just question again, can the Broncos do enough to not shoot themselves in the foot, and can they close out games? And that's what I think that this game's going to come down to. But we're going to be talking about what the keys are for Bo Nix and the Broncos to upset these Eagles teams. And that is, again, the Eagles aren't unbeatable. There are ways that you can move the ball. There's ways you can have success. It's just, can the Broncos go out there, execute, and not shoot themselves in the foot? That, to me, is the biggest question.
Absolutely. It's all about execution, and we haven't seen that since last game, and even then there were some spots where it could use improvement. Bonig specifically still having trouble setting his feet, or I kind of think of the throw to RJ Harvey. Got to remember that he's 5'9", not 6'5". And the clean pocket as well. So it's, hey, you got to make that throw. I know he's shorter, and yes, it hit his fingertips, but as the franchise quarterback, or he's still proving that in my eyes. You got to make those throws, and then obviously the terrible interception in the end zone. I mean, nothing's there. Throw it away. But the offense in general needs to show more cohesion against these better teams, because you can make the kind of mistakes you did against the Bengals and people, that's fine, we won. But at the end of the day, those are backbreaking penalties, plays, what have you. And you just can't have that against an Eagles squad who are the defending Super Bowl champs.
Yeah, I would say what Bo Nix is on the throw to RJ Harvey, it hit his fingertips with him reaching out for it. Like he had to reach for it. That is one that you just gotta just drop it a little bit lower. And I've seen people bring up the fact that RJ Harvey slowed down a little bit as the ball was being thrown, which he does, but that's pretty standard. It's part of your speed variation in routes. It helps. It's part of what players are taught to help get themselves open. And not only that, when you burst off the line, you're bursting off that line for instant separation. Very few receivers keep up that, sustain that speed throughout their whole route. Again, speed variation is a thing. But that said, even if RJ Harvey was still running at full speed and didn't slow down, it's still one that is probably going off his fingertips, maybe just without having to reach for it as much as he did. It was that minimal of an impact on it because he slows down right when the ball is being thrown. And so it still wasn't a great throw. Bo Nix has to rein that in a little bit. And to give Bo Nix some credit, there was a large focus on improving his footwork in this. There wasn't so many off-platform throws in this one, and that was a step in the right direction. He made some really good throws. He threw with a lot of trust, especially to Cortland Sutton. I mean, it was, I'm going to throw it to a spot, and I'm trusting my wide receiver. I'm trusting Cortland Sutton to get there and make a play on the ball. The touchdown was one, and there was another big play that he had where to Sutton down on the left sideline that he made as well. And then on the interception, it's one where, it's fourth down, so I understand the mentality of trying to make a play, but that ball had no business being thrown. It wasn't a goal to go situation, so there was still a chance of picking up a first down. It's one of those where, with how it looked, you may not get it, but Bo Nix needs to see that the coverage is there. Everybody's covered tightly. You have that linebacker there that's just sitting in your throwing lane. Tuck it and run it. Try to make something happen with the legs, and I think that's with him as being the threat with his legs that he's shown he can be last year. Then you need to do that. It's not something we've seen as much this year. We did see it earlier in the game too. He tucked it and ran it and picked up that first touchdown. So I'd like to see that a little bit more. And against a team like the Eagles, those are the plays that you have to make. You just have to take everything that step further, because this defense is really good against the pass. It is a very tough defense to move the ball through the air. They have two corners in Quinion Mitchell and Cooper DeJean who are playing lights out right now. They are probably two of the best corners in the NFL, like top 5 corners in the NFL so far this season. Quinion Mitchell has consistently shut down top receivers. Cooper DeJean consistently shutting down whoever he's matched up against in the slot. So, and then the safeties are doing extremely well as well. So you got to get a cleaner game from Bo Nix. But I think that what the biggest key for the Broncos isn't in the pass game. It's actually on the ground. But before we get into that, I'm going to say hello to some people here in the chat. We have Conga Hydra saying, I think the Broncos could upset the Eagles if the Bengals players suited up in the Eagles jerseys on Sunday. Yeah, there seems to be a big talent discrepancy between the Eagles and the Broncos, especially on the offensive side of the ball. David Youngkin says, run the ball, stop with self-inflicted penalties, stop with the first 3 and out of the first play on the first drive of the game. Alabama coming in, Chagrin coming in saying, what's up, guys? I heard a crazy stat. The Broncos have not trailed for 1 second in the fourth quarter this year. Yeah, it's been an interesting one. Steve Baumgartner, who's one of our many YouTube members, we appreciate you coming in saying, good morning, Broncos country. Flying Anger Pig, good morning. Do you think this is a trap game for Philly? It definitely could be, with them coming off the games that they have, because they had the Los Angeles Rams last week. They have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers last week, and the Los Angeles Rams the week before. This could be a trap game because not only that is they have a divisional opponent the week after. They have the New York Giants in week 6. Then you have the Minnesota Vikings, and then you have the New York Giants again. So the Giants, two big rivals in it, and teams like to look ahead a little bit to those rival games. I mean, it's important that you win those divisional games. And after the Broncos, it's road trip. They're heading to New York, and then they're heading to Minnesota. So I could see the Eagles to an extent overlooking this game that could kind of make this a little bit of a trap game for them.
Absolutely. And the Broncos have to be on their A game, and as do the Eagles. They may be undefeated now, but all it takes is one game, one slip up. And they haven't been quite a dynamic passing offense. It's mostly been a run first team, which that's kind of what their bread and butter has been for the past couple of years, especially with Saquon Barkley, who actually has a pretty terrible yards per carry. He hasn't been doing too well this season, so we'll have to monitor that, and hopefully the Broncos can bring up uh, Malcolm Roach back. Hopefully get some more depth in that interior line to help stuff the run, not just for the Eagles, but in general. They've been missing that quite a bit. Um, but yeah, absolutely a trap game. There are certain ways that the Broncos can exploit this Philly team. They're just going to have to execute because, like I said, you can get away with some stuff against the Cincinnati team who's down and out after 4 weeks of football. Let's be real. You can't do that against the defending champs and a Vic Fangio who's probably licking his chops right now, wanting to get revenge a little bit for his time here in Denver.
Yeah, and man, what a weird situation that was with Vic Fangio because he was the favorite to become the defensive coordinator for the Broncos in Sean Payton's first year, but ultimately decided not to because he didn't think a year away from the Broncos was long enough. So there's a universe out there, if you believe in the multiverse, where Vic Fangio is the Broncos defensive coordinator, and that would be interesting. We have Conga Hydra coming in saying plus or minus 5 penalties for Wattenberg versus the Eagles. Yeah, Wattenberg's coming off a terrible game, but in his defense, and I hate doing this because man, was he even outside of the penalties, Wattenberg was awful. It's not like it's common practice for him to get flagged for that much. I mean, last year as a starter, he only got penalized 7 times total on the season. So I understand where you're coming at with the joke. I would be surprised if we see another game like that out of him. But this isn't an easy matchup for him. So he, even without the penalties, he might still stink a little bit. We have Mike Thompson saying Moss is a pretty good corner. That's what I've been saying. He is the second or the most targeted corner, I believe now, and he is allowing like bottom 10 in catch rate. So he's getting targeted a lot, just not allowing a lot of catches. Obviously, when he does allow catches, some of them stink, some of the penalties stink, but it's going to happen. It's not like he's been a liability for the Broncos defense whatsoever. Jake coming in and saying, I'm concerned that the Eagles match up very well against our weaknesses. Their rock beats our scissors. And I hear Roach may be back for this game. Think he will help out in the run game. There's a possibility Roach is back. I think if we see him if they open his practice window today, I think there's a good chance he plays against the Eagles. If not, I would be surprised. It all depends on where he's coming back. Medically wise, same with Drew Sanders, both of whom are eligible to come off injury reserve this week. As for the Eagles matchup and matching up well against our weakness and their rock beats our scissors, I think the Broncos paper also beats their rock, though. I think where the Broncos do well doesn't match up very well with where the Eagles are doing well. It's kind of a strength on a weakness as well for that, which is what opens the door, and definitely more on that here in just a second. David Youngkin coming in with the $5 super chat. Thank you, David. We appreciate that. He says this team looks balanced for the first time, and that is what the Broncos fans have been waiting for. Yes, but Denver was at 40 passing attempts, I think is what it was, to 26 rushing attempts entering the final 2 drives. They can be a little bit more balanced when the game is still in play, right? When it's not out of hand for the opposing team and they're just absolutely running to get out of the game. That's what happened. So we can see a little bit more balance going in. There's a couple drives, not including the end of the first half drive, where the Broncos were very pass happy, that I would have liked to see them be a little bit more balanced on those drives. Again, the end of the first half drive is the exception to that, as you don't have a lot of time and you're trying to move the ball downfield. So they ended up balanced on the game as overall, but they got that balance over the final 2 drives.
Yeah, and the balance is key. Obviously, you want to see the run game materialize each and every game. Realistically, will that happen? Probably not. But it definitely took some pressure off of Bo Nix, even though, like you mentioned, he did throw 40 times in that game. My concern, especially for the offense, is second half. There's no one's coming out with fire coming out of the second half. It seems like, okay, let's let's restart the game over and come out slow like they usually do to start games, right? And you can't do that. You can't come out flat in the second half against these other teams. It's similar to mistakes. You can't start slow. And against these better teams like the Eagles, especially, you can't give anyone a chance to either extend their lead or get back into the game coming out of half. They just can't come out flat, and we've seen that time and time again. And it's just so frustrating to me.
Yeah.
And whether it be offensively or defensively.
Yeah, thank you again, David, for the super chat. We appreciate that. We have Peter Middleton coming in saying, "Let's go Broncos," and Sutton is playing well. Franklin back to last year's drops, or was this week just a blip? Oh, let's hope this week was a blip. The Broncos don't need Troy Franklin to turn into a pumpkin. The last 2 weeks from Franklin haven't been great. I think he's had 3 drops over the last 2 games, and could be 4, but one of them got overruled by a penalty. So it's not been great from him. And it's not just that, it's watching this game against the Bengals. He was half-assing a lot of his routes, which is not what you want to see. And when I did my grades, I wrote up the fact that I wrote it up as what the Broncos got from Franklin this year was rookie version Franklin. And that is not what they need. That's not what they want. Hopefully it was just a down game. And I've been a big doubter of Troy Franklin and been wanting him to see it and prove it. He proved it over the first 2 weeks. I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt that these last 2 weeks have just been down games for him and that he'll bounce back. But only time will tell on that. We have Michael Ronquillo coming in and saying, "Good morning, Eric and Dylan on Broncos for breakfast. Go Bo Broncos." And hat tip to all of the Mount Rushmore supporters. And definitely thank you all who are coming in and supporting the show throughout it. We have DeAndre Weatherspoon coming. It definitely could be a trap game for Philly, and execute got to be better and can't beat themselves. Exactly. And that's the biggest thing is you can't be like what Breece Hall said. You can't, have the other team shoot themselves in the foot and then come back and shoot yourselves in the head. And honestly, that's what the Broncos did against the Colts, and that's what the Broncos did against the Chargers, especially the Colts, where you get that penalty where you're going for a block unnecessarily on the last second field goal for a kicker whose career high was a 48-yarder, and you're trying to block what would be a 60-yarder. Like that is a definition of what back to Breece Hall's quote of shooting yourself in the head. You gave him a second chance, 15 yards, made it a much easier kick unnecessarily. And so it is a lot of question. And do you think Dobbins or Harvey will have a productive game against Philly? Brandon Cox comes in asking. Yes. And I guess we're going to jump into it here a little bit. Where the Eagles are most susceptible to giving up yardage, running game. That rushing defense, it's not terrible. It's not like Bengals bad, but they're not good either. And what's more than that, yeah, they have Jordan Davis. Yes, they have Jalen Carter, but they've been struggling. The Philadelphia Eagles are actually the worst rushing defense when it comes to teams rushing between the tackles. Denver's actually done quite well there, and they're actually a top 5 unit rushing the ball between the tackles. And in multiple advanced analytics, they are second best. Still have to go out there and execute. Luke Wattenberg is still a liability, and seeing him match up against Jordan Davis is going to be tough. But you can run the ball against the Eagles, and you can do it between the tackles. They don't do a lot of heavy boxes. It's all light. They don't stack it. And what's more is the Eagles are allowing 1.62 yards before contact rushing between the tackles specifically. That is the second highest, right? The Miami Dolphins are the worst at 2.12. So the Eagles, they're allowing a lot of yards before contact, and they're allowing a lot of yards after contact running between the tackles. Outside the tackles, the Broncos basically should say no and eliminate and take out all outside the tackle runs for this game, because mention Quentin Mitchell, mention Cooper DeJean, mention the safeties. They all fly to the ball. They all play the run extremely well outside, and they are one of the best rushing defenses when teams run outside the tackles. You got to be able to run the ball between the tackles against this defense. You need to control the clock. You need to keep your defense on the field, because that is one area where, going back to what Jake said, where their rock beats our scissors, offensively, that is very much the case. Their offense, where they have their strengths, they can easily attack the Broncos' defensive weaknesses and counter them a lot of ways. So running the ball between the tackles, draining the clock, and going out there and executing and having success. That is the biggest key, in my opinion, to the Broncos upsetting the Eagles. You got to be able to run the ball between the tackles.
And not only run the ball, but commit to that run game. Don't, you get stuffed once. Don't go away from it, Sean Payton. You got to stay committed to pounding the rock, wearing down that Eagles defense. Because, like you said, that matchup is, I don't necessarily say favorable, but it's something that you could look to exploit. And hey, man, you got Harvey, very explosive. You got J.K. Dobbins, who's been playing very well. Keep handing them the rock, pound that ball, and take advantage of that matchup. Because let's be real, pass game's going to look a little rough against this Eagles team. I love Sutton. Didn't play very well against Xavier Howard, who is ancient and was out of football for a year or two. And in comes Quinyon Mitchell, who's been playing lights out, like you mentioned. So there should be an emphasis on the run game, and there's avenues to make it work. They just have to stick with it. They can't get away from it like they've done time and time again in past games. And we'll just go pass happy. It's fine. Like, no, stick to the ground game because it will work if you can commit to doing so.
Yeah, and on that, the Broncos 51% success rate rushing between the tackles. That is the seventh best in the NFL. They're actually tied for sixth best with the Los Angeles Rams. And so with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Los Angeles Rams are at 51.1. So pretty much same. Whereas the Eagles, they have the worst success rate in stopping the run between the tackles. They have the lowest stuff rate. Again, rushing between the tackles. That's where J.K. Dobbins has really excelled. And we saw a lot of that this last game of what is helping him be successful rushing between the tackles. The vision is so good there. And it's just, again, you got to be able to get that done. And you do need Luke Wanberg to handle his matchup. But Jalen Carter, his effort against the run has been extremely questionable. He loves to get after the quarterback. And man, oh man, the Broncos need to watch out passing the ball because Jalen Carter can absolutely dominate the interior of this offensive line. And then again, talking about the corners on the outside. And Sean Payton has modernized his belief, right? And I've talked about this a couple times before. The more modern opinion is you pass to set up the run. And that is what Sean Payton is at this point. But there are still times where it's necessary where you need to go old school and run to set up the pass. And this is one of those games. You have to force the Vic Fangio and the Eagles defense to counter your running game. You have to have that success to where they have to adapt to it to open up the passing game because of how good this defense is against the pass, and not just up front, not just in secondary, the linebackers as well. They are built to stop the pass. They are built to take away that and make teams one-dimensional in the run game. So let them do that for a while. Have that success where they have to adapt. And so the Broncos need that because obviously it's hard to win a game without explosive passing plays. It's hard to win a game without passing the ball well. I mean, it's not, 2011 Broncos. It's not replicable all that often. So you got to be able to do that to open up the passing game because there is a matchup here that is beneficial for the Broncos in the passing game. And that is whoever gets matched up against Adoree Jackson if he plays, or Kelee Ringo if he ends up playing for Jackson, as Jackson's was out this last game with an injury, and it sounds like he might miss this game as well. There's an opening there, but you have to force the change from the Eagles defense because they're shading their safeties to help that corner, either a Jackson or Ringo, because Quinton Mitchell and Cooper DeJean can be so trusted in one-on-one coverage. So you got to force that change. You got to pull the safety's eyes down into the run game a little bit, which leads to another key for this, the play action. The Eagles defense is, I believe, is like bottom 5 in play action passing defense. Like they bite bad because teams have had success running the ball that those safeties are biting on it. So you run to set up play action, and you just got to get that going. You can build off the successful run game. And that is really what Sean Payton and the Broncos need to do.
Absolutely. And you've seen in the past, Bo Nix is very comfortable when he's on the move and rolling out. So that could play to their advantage greatly. My my one concern about whoever ends up lining across Ringo or Adoree Jackson, someone has to step up. We can't just have one receiver a game blowing up like one week it's Troy Franklin on that one drive, or then you have Cortland Sutton's the man another game, and it's like we need more than one of you to step up. Evan Ingram, seems like the chemistry is not there, perhaps. I mean, Bo was kind of holding the ball a little longer than he should have on some of the passes to Ingram, which was kind of a bummer to see. Might just take a little time for that connection. Like we already mentioned, Troy Franklin had a couple drops, and it's like, you hope that was a blip. You hope that that's not going to continue, because you need someone besides Cortland Sutton to be the man every game. You need a collective from the receiving core to step up, and hopefully we see that, because that is a spot they can be taken advantage of on that opposite Quinion Mitchell.
Yeah, now moving to the other side, this Broncos defense against this Eagles offense. I don't know if you saw DJ Jones' quote about stopping the tush push. We just got to grab our nuts and hope and try our best to stop it. Yeah, it is questionable. I would like to see the refs start enforcing, some penalties against it, because we're seeing there is a focus on stopping, formation penalties, how you line up and everything like that, except for the tush push. It's okay if you line up they're in the neutral zone, the offense line's in the neutral zone on the tush push. It's not okay. It's okay for the center to be offsides on the tush push, but it's not actually okay. So if the refs want to enforce these penalties and highlight them, well, then it needs to be on all plays, because the tush push, that is the issue with the tush push here. I think it's a fine play. I'm not for getting it banned, but it still needs to follow the rules that are in play, especially if you're going to start highlighting them. The center, he lines up with his head over the ball. You're not allowed to do that. The guards are lining up with their helmets in the neutral zone. You're not allowed to do that. So I would like to see that being enforced, but that's not a way that you're going to stop this. If they don't call it, you still have to go out there and figure out a way to stop that tush push. And it is so hard, because it's just such a leverage play. All they're doing is just getting out of the defensive line and driving you back enough to get for the basically lifting them up and driving them back for Jalen Hurts to go underneath and pick up the yards needed. So you got to figure out a way to do that, and it's tough to get underneath them when they're allowed to bend and break the rules with how they're lining up. But that said, the Eagles offense has been effective. They're not the best offense in the world. There's a lot of issues with the running game. Saquon Barkley is coming off a game where he averaged like 2.3 yards per carry. He's only averaging like 3.1 on the season. It's been a really rough season for them. Their offensive line, which has been a stalwart for them, they're having some cracks. Landon Dickerson has been really bad this season. And their right guard, Tyler Steen, he's been really bad. The other three have been quite good, but Lane Johnson's dealing with an injury, and you can definitely tell that he's hurt, that something's been bothering him, and it's showing up in his play. Myalta's he's a top 3 tackle in the NFL so far this season. He's been absolutely phenomenal. So on that, I mentioned last night about how Zach Allen was a little MIA against the Bengals, and how he did draw, Nick brought this up, how he drew the quadruple team on the Benito and Cooper double sack or split sack, but that was by scheme. Vance Joseph, all game long, he was forcing them to calculate for the offensive line to compensate for the interior rush, because he was consistently showing the linebackers in the A gap. And even though he didn't bring them all that often, Jake Browning was still adjusting for the offensive line to collapse. They were focusing on getting those one-on-one matchups outside. This is a game where that may not be as effective, because Lane Johnson and Myalta, they should be able to handle Benito and Cooper. They might still get a sack apiece, but they should be able to have a pretty effective game. But John Franklin Myers against Landon Dickerson is such a good matchup for John Franklin Myers, and Zach Allen against Tyler Steen is such a good matchup for that. The focus in this one should be trying to get the offensive line to go out, to spread out and enable space for John Franklin Myers and Zach Allen to work on the inside to get the pressures. And when you're talking about matchups, this is one of those key matchups where the Broncos defense can find success against the Eagles offense. It's just, again, you got to go out there and execute it, and you need Vance Joseph on point with his play calls with this one to help get that offensive line to spread out to, again, make those matchups even more in your favor.
Absolutely, and you, going back to the tush push, that's just going to be a tough play to stop. And obviously, like you mentioned, the refs need to be more consistent with how they, if they really do care about these types of alignment penalties on offense, they need to be more consistent with when they call it on the tush push. That being said, the Broncos can't leave it up to the refs to make those decisions for them. They have to go out there and win, and they have to avoid situations where they are in third and very short or fourth and very short, because it's almost automatic that the Eagles are going to take that over and get the first down with the tush push. The defense has to keep them in longer situations. That's obviously easier said than done, but as you mentioned, there's some weaknesses on this offensive line, and they should look to exploit them. Lane Johnson, I believe, is a stinger that he's dealing with. Maybe you get Nick Benito on that side and beat him with some speed. But either way, they need to take advantage of that injury, and as well as the interior, like you mentioned. Zach Allen needs to show up. John Franklin Myers looked pretty good last game, and I'm excited to see more from him. I hope they can get him extended. We'll see if that happens. But yeah, just like you said, you got to space out that offensive line, get some more one-on-one matchups going.
Yeah, there's a lot there with this defensive front to have success. And it's, when talking about Landon Dickerson and Tyler Steen, part of the issue with the running game has been their play. So there is a issue with that the Broncos can exploit. And, going back to the tush push, one of the best ways to defend that is keep them from being able to run it. They're not running it in, 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4. They're running it in 3rd and 1 or 3rd and inches. Keep that from happening. Nick touched about this on this last night. You got to keep them and force them to be behind schedule. Talk about that a lot. Being ahead of schedule, that's 4 or 5 yards on first down. That's 2-3 yards at least on second down. Don't let that happen, and keep them out of tush push situations. Keep them out from getting lined up right on the goal line. So when you want to stop that, you got to do that. Let that happen, and that means you got to watch out for the quick passing game. That is where their offense is the best. AJ Brown, he's had from 2022 through 2024, he had 4 halves without a catch and target. He's at 4 so far this season. So every single game he's gone a half without a catch or target. And he's starting to show some disdain for his usage. It led to a bit of some comments being made. So even though he's been quiet, this is a game where AJ Brown could come out and have that big game, and they love to use him in those screens. And a lot of us watched DT in Denver for a long time, and AJ Brown is probably one of the closer guys to that in the NFL right now in terms of the uses on screen, what they bring in the screen game. So that's something that you got to watch out for. And you just can't let AJ Brown take over this game. If you do, then it's probably going to be a long day for this defense. And honestly, that is the biggest worry I have for this Eagles offense, is AJ Brown having that big game for the first time this season after being so quiet and starting to raise some hell about it within the team and within the locker room.
Yeah, and the Broncos need to obviously stop the run. That's the big thing, the run first team, but they have those weapons on the outside. They have AJ Brown, they have Devonta Smith, even Dallas Goedert. It has been solid. And AJ Brown is one of those, people forget how good he really is just because of the philosophy of this team. And you got Saquon and Jalen Hurts running the ball. That's kind of like the big marquee thing, but AJ Brown still got it. Whether he is frustrated or not, I feel they could get him the ball quite a bit this game if they like the matchup, like whether it's on screens or not. They're going to look to get him the ball and hopefully the Broncos can hold up. The secondary has been shaky, to say the least, this season. Obviously, I see a lot of chatter in the chat right now about Riley Moss. Yes, there's a huge volume of targets going to Moss, and he's done good, all things considered. And it's just going to happen when you line up across or opposite Patrick Surtain. So Devonta Smith is also very scary. The Slim Reaper, I believe, is his nickname. Dude is an absolute beast, former Heisman. So they have two very good wideouts. So it's not just AJ Brown. So they have a lot of things they can do. It's just a matter of getting Jalen Hurts or pressuring Jalen Hurts and ultimately taking him down, so those guys can't get those plays off.
Yeah, and with Riley Moss, he is the third most targeted corner in the NFL right now. He's been targeted 33 times. He's allowing less than 50% of those to be caught. His catch rate is actually among the best among corners in the NFL right now. So is it perfect? No. He's not a safety. If you're talking about him being a safety, then you don't know what you're talking about. He's doing well, all things considered. Again, doesn't mean there's not issues. He's allowed some catches. He's allowed some big plays happen. The penalties, they're very frustrating. But he hasn't been a liability for this team at corner. He's, again, some of those catches he allowed, you can barely have better coverage on the play for it. One of the catches that he allowed on T. Higgins on that first drive, which was one of two catches Riley Moss allowed or to T. Higgins, and one of three, I think, on the night, despite being targeted like 9 times. You can't. It was a great throw by Jake Browning. He's not a great quarterback, but that throw was great, and T. Higgins made a great play for the ball. The touchdown he allowed to the Chargers, Justin Herbert made a great play to avoid Zach Allen, made a great throw, and Keenan Allen made a great catch. Sometimes you cannot stop a great throw and a good catch, or a great catch. Like, you just can't. And Riley Moss, one of his big issues is 8th percentile arm length, 30-inch arms. He doesn't always have the best ability to reach and attack the catch point, and that's been part of the issue for it. Not as many plays on the ball as you'd like to see. And then, I've seen, in the chat, there's some conversation about the Broncos defensive scheme and Moss not being a great press man corner. Well, first of all, that's technically where he's had the most success, even though the Broncos are doing that far less than they're playing off coverage. And the sample size is part of why he hasn't been asked to play press man a whole lot this season. None of the Broncos have been. And it's just been an issue for it. And there's a lot of issues with the defensive scheme. There's a lot of issues with the secondary. Patrick Surtain has been terrible for most of the season. He'd had a great game against the Bengals, stopping Jamar Chase, and I touched on this last night, there were a lot of missed opportunities, and because the defensive front did their job and Jake Browning's just not that high quality of a quarterback, there's missed opportunities there, but that happens every single game. There's always missed opportunities for wide receivers because they get open, and for one reason or another, the quarterback doesn't throw them the ball. That doesn't change the fact that he was really bad against the Colts. He was really bad against the Chargers, and Riley Moss has been pretty solid, and this is a very tough matchup for them. I don't think it's as tough. I think that, again, I said something I said last night. T. Higgins and Jamar Chase was the toughest duo that this defense had to face at wide receiver. Unfortunately, we caught a break with Joe Burrow being out. AJ Brown and Devonta Smith are a dangerous duo. I'm wondering how they cover them. I would expect Patrick Surtain to shadow AJ Brown, and I think that they'll just kind of play position alignment on against the other guys. Is where they line up at. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there. If Devonta Smith's in the slot, then you're going to see Jaquan McMillan or Jahdae Barron on him. If he's lining up outside as the other boundary receiver, then you're just going to see Riley Moss. So I think it's going to be very alignment based with the other ones, which is as it should be. Devonta Smith is a tough ass for a corner. I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of keep a safety shaded his way. But that's probably the look that we're going to see. Jelly come in, who's been the biggest component in the chat for today for Riley Moss being, stupidly talking about or the stupid conversation about moving Riley Moss to safety. See, that's the thing. It seems like every time guys moss him, even mediocre guys like Alec Pierce, the excuse is it was a perfect ball. I'm not hearing it. No, that's not it at all. There was a great play from Alec Pierce to get the ball. I think Alec Pierce is better than a mediocre guy. Not saying he's great, but he's better than mediocre. But T. Higgins, one of the two catches he allowed to T. Higgins, one of them was just a perfect throw and a perfect catch. The touchdown to Zach Allen, that was a perfect throw and a perfect catch with a great play by Justin Herbert to set it up. There was a great catch from Alec Pierce against the Colts. It happens. Doesn't mean he hasn't made bad plays. It's not what's being said at all. It's just adding some context that sometimes you can allow a catch when everything else around you is great. So it's just the way it is. Now, Dylan, is there another matchup with this either their offense against our defense or our defense against or our offense against theirs? Is there another matchup here that you're kind of looking at for the Broncos to kind of attack or exploit?
You know, I really kind of like, or not kind of like, but it's more so the edge rushers for the Eagles are not super great. I think Garrett Bowles has been absolutely amazing this season, and that kind of gets lost on people. And I can't stress enough, one penalty or one missed rep does not make Garrett Bowles trash. This dude has been absolutely amazing, and I think I'm really excited to see how well he holds up against this defensive front, especially Darius Smith. He's been a good player over the years, but he's a little older. And then how do you say Jalix Hunt? Jack Hunt? Yeah. Jalix Hunt. Not as familiar with him, but I think that our offensive tackle is going to have a lot of success in this game and keeping Bo upright. He just has to stay in that pocket and make the throws. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to bring up Garrett Bowles, to be honest, because he's not getting as much love as I think he should, because you don't hear his name a lot, and that's a fantastic thing. You don't want to hear corners' names, and you don't want to hear offensive linemen's names.
If I remember right, he's leading the league in pass block win rate. He's leading the league in pass blocking efficiency. He is tied for the fewest pressures allowed. He's been a top 3 corner or top 3 tackle in the NFL so far, tied with Penei Sewell and Jordan Mailata. And man, I spent my Saturday watching every single offensive line because I want to see if the Bengals were far and away the worst. They were. So having just watched every single offensive line from prior to the week 4 games, man, Garrett Bowles is so underappreciated. And on that note, there's been a lot of terrible interior offensive line play in general between the three of them. The Broncos have probably been middle of the pack in interior offensive line play. Ben Powers has been leading the way. He's been one of the better, not best, one of the better, I would say probably a top 12, top 15 guard in the NFL so far. Quinn Miners has been the weak link at the guards. Luke Wantenberg's been terrible. He has been, I believe, is rated as like the 6th worst center in the NFL right now by Pro Football Focus. And it tracks when watching over the offensive line play. Mike McGlinchey's been solid, but Garrett Bowles, man, he's been so good. There's still some issues and inconsistencies as a run blocker, but it's not as inconsistent as we saw a year ago. It is a very questionable thing. And Conga Hydra actually comes in and says, I wonder how much better Powers and Miners would look if they had a better center next to them. Yes. So I've touched on this before. When you get rough center play, you typically shade your guards to help protect that center a little bit. And the Broncos are doing that quite often. Last year, there was a lot of Ben Powers doing that. This year, to start, so far, it's been a lot of Miners doing that. And it tracks. Last year, when Powers was bad because he had to help cover that, and it really showed up, he struggled on his own, don't get me wrong. And this year, I mean, we got a great season from Quinn Miners last year, and now he's struggling when he's being asked with helping it. It's and part of the reason for that is, I mean, he had such a good year last year. He can handle that and help handle his own responsibility and help handle that. And he possibly could, and it could be taking some time to adjust to that, which could be cause for some of his concerns. But it's more than that as well. There have been multiple times this season alone. There's like 5 or 6 times against the Titans, multiple times against Colts. Like every single game, we're talking 5 to 10 times where Quinn Miners engages or Ben Powers engage. One of them engage their defender. They have them locked up, and Wattenberg comes in, shoves the defender as to chip the double team, only to push that defender out of the block of the guard and allow that and that defender then goes and makes a play because the guard's not in a position to recover for that. And it's one of those things where Wattenberg is being asked to do that. He's being asked to help get them in position, but he needs to have the awareness to see they have a good position. If I push him, I'm putting them at a disadvantage. I need to just pull, or I just need to get downfield, make that second block. I don't need to add in that chip on this defensive lineman because I'm just hurting my teammates. And Wattenberg isn't the most aware lineman in the NFL. That's probably his biggest issue. He just lacks awareness of what's going on around him. And I mean, you can talk about the strength. He's unable to generate much drive in the running game. There's a lot of issues to it, but the lack of awareness is probably the biggest one because it's been so detrimental to the unit as a whole.
Yes, and we could see a replacement there. Obviously, he's going to start for a little while longer here, but if things persist, I would imagine they pivot to Forsyth, which also not an amazing option. Center has been pretty rough for the Broncos these past couple of years, but I'd prefer not to see Forsyth. I'm not, but if there needs to a change needs to be made, that's kind of what they're looking at. So not a great outlook for the center position, like you mentioned. Wattenberg has been god awful, whether it's penalties or whether it's just his play in general. Like you mentioned, he is making it harder on his guards, and as a whole, it's making that interior much worse than it probably should be, especially Quinn Miners. The fall off is really hurting to watch because he was such a phenomenal player just a season ago.
Yeah, and on that note, just because I know there's some people who listen to this that still pine for Lloyd Cushenberry, Luke Wattenberg's been better than Lloyd Cushenberry so far this season. Cushenberry's been awful, like so far and away worse. Like almost no redeeming qualities against it for him. But Luke Wattenberg, the big praise for him has always been pass protection. Oh, he does well in pass protection. Alex Forsyth is a significantly better run defender and was significantly worse last year when he came in to fill in for Luke Wattenberg in pass protection. But it's easier to cover centers for poor pass protection play from your guards than it is for poor run blocking. So I do think that they need to be having that conversation about benching Luke Wattenberg and putting in Alex Forsyth and still looking at your guards to cover for the center, but in pass protection a little bit. It's easier to cover your center and pass protection than it is for the run game, because guess what? You can also fall back on your running back. And hey, we've talked about it before about how important run blocking is, and Sean Payton absolutely loves run blocking, and it's obviously is such a deciding factor for him from your running backs. So for pass protection for it. So, hey, is a you can use that to help protect the center for it a little bit. So you got to have that switch, but you can't do it now. It's a short week. Philadelphia Eagles, you can't make that switch. Then you have to travel to London. Can't make that switch when you're traveling to London. Can't make that switch traveling back. So we're probably stuck with 3 more weeks of Luke Wattenberg at least, and then you can start having actually looking into doing that. I think they should have made the change before the Bengals game and used the Bengals game to get that chemistry down with the unit a little bit, but it's a conversation you have to start having. And I think that the Eagles game is only going to intensify those calls for Luke Wattenberg to be benched, not because of penalties. Again, I doubt he gets called for 5 penalties in a game again, but because he just struggles so much.
Yeah, it's going to be tough, but hey, like you said, if it's easier to cover up pass protection, maybe they do make that switch sooner rather than later. But I think Wattenberg would have to be abysmally bad this next game, which there is potential for. Let's be real, but we'll have to see what happens. Like you said, it's probably another handful of weeks here until they do decide to make that switch, if at all.
Yeah, Jelly coming in with $1.99 super chat saying, love y'all, especially you, Seth Rogen, also on the Hill. As long as you keep donating money, you can keep calling me Seth Hill. I'm nowhere near as funny or talented as Seth Rogen is, but I'll take it as a compliment. Like, dude is funny and so talented.
I will before we move on. If he's Seth Rogen, who am I? You have to come up with one for me now. I'm feeling a little bit left out.
I think there's an obvious one, but it's probably not. It's probably one that might be more of an insult.
That's fine.
I mean, it'd have to be Franco, right?
You know what's really funny? My brother to this day still has me in his phone because we had a guy at school who used to call me James Franco, and my brother to this day still has me, I believe, as that in his contacts. So there we go. Perfect.
Congo Hydra, maybe move Miners to center and put Palcho at guard. Anything has to be better. At this point, you're not moving Quinn Miners, right? I mean, it stinks because I think he can be even better at center. Like, man, he can be so good at center. But I'm just at this point, you don't. It's one that is it's a tough thing because not everybody can play center, and Palcheski could probably fits better as a guard than he does a tackle. But man, did he have a good game against the Bengals, minus that stupid unnecessary penalty, as Troy Aikman also talked about against the Bengals. But on top of that, man, give me more jumbo packages in general. So that is something that I would like to see as well. No, he didn't. Miners didn't play center in college. He hadn't taken a center snap before until his Senior Bowl prior to his draft. That was his first time he ever took a center snap. But it is so you got to figure out something with the offensive line because Luke Wattenberg is such a major weakness. You don't have time for it, but jumbo packages that can help, especially if you want to try to run the ball outside the tackles against the Eagles. I still think that it is a better idea to focus on between the tackles, and you can still use Palcheski for that, for some of that blocking on the outside and help, seal the edge. You don't want the backside defender coming down and from behind and making a play on it. But you got to figure out something. If anything, then maybe if you're talking about moving somebody to center and not going to Alex Forsyth, which would be very questionable, then it would be Palcheski that you would look at doing that. But again, if you're making any changes at center, it's going to be to Alex Forsyth. It's not going to be moving Quinn Miners, because then you just have a big issue of what are you doing at guard? Like when you move a starter, you then have to replace the starter. And the Broncos don't have another option to start in Quinn Miners' place. They at least have an option in Alex Forsyth. I mean, I guess maybe you can talk about Alex Palcheski as you brought in, but again, even though I think he could be good there and probably better than tackle, the Broncos seem pretty cemented at keeping him at tackle. And I believe my thought is they're looking at him to replace Mike McGlinchey possibly after the season, if not after the next season, and just continue developing Alex Palcheski. So there's a lot there for it. And it's just the answer is hardly ever moving one starter to replace another starter on the offensive line.
Yeah, it's kind of a move you make if you're a team that's kind of down and out and you're just trying to see what sticks and throw stuff at the wall type stuff. But yeah, you don't want to move Miners. His best spot is there, although yes, he has played pretty poorly this season. I don't believe that's fully on him. I know it's not fully on him, but you don't just move him for the sake of moving him to center, because like you mentioned, who's stepping in a guard? Pelcho. I mean, I like him, but like you mentioned, I believe they want to keep him there at tackle. Let's not mess up all of the chemistry just to move Miners to center, which, like you mentioned, he has not played that position outside of the Senior Bowl because they just want to see guys' versatility. It's not necessarily where they're going to play it. It's like when people used to bring up, oh, well, actually, the Broncos drafted Dalton Reisner, and he was a tackle. Well, they drafted him to play guard. That does not matter.
Yeah. And we have Coach Chris with the $50 super chat. I almost read that as $5. I missed a zero there, Chris. Thank you for coming in. Late or not, perfectly okay. We appreciate you coming and joining us. Can we hang with the championship team? Or sorry, good morning. Sorry for joining late. This is a pivotal game Sunday. Can we hang with the championship team? It would certainly shut up the armchair GMs and coaches. Love me some Broncos, and let's circulate a petition to make this show 2 hours long. Oh man, I love doing these shows, but they take a lot out of you. And I mean, granted, it's like 7-8 hours for the live draft shows, but after 2 hours, I feel completely drained. Um, I mean, doing Monday morning, Tuesday night, Wednesday morning, that's draining. I don't know if I could do 2 hours. Um, but I mean, if it's what the people want, no, it's not something we were able to do, unfortunately, because obviously lives and everything like that. But you guys get us for 2 hours a week
Yeah.
in the morning. So, but we appreciate you, Chris, coming in for that. And can we hang with the championship team? I think they can if they can go out there and execute again and really focus on running between the tackles. The Eagles defense is really bad stopping the run between the tackles, which you may not think when you have Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter again. And some of the linebacker play that they have has been really good as well. But if you can run between the tackles, if you can control the clock and keep your defense off the field and then not shoot yourselves in the foot on defense with penalties and uh, missed tackles, leaked yardage, however you want to refer to it, Denver definitely has a chance for it. Can they overcome those? That is the question. They've had issues executing against great or good teams in the NFL. Look at the Colts game, look at the Chargers game, and they were still close in this one. I think this one's going to be close. I think Denver will have a chance late. I just question if they'll be able to pull it off.
And that's been the big question thus far this season. Can you close out a game against good competition?
Yeah.
We haven't seen that this year. We certainly didn't see it last year either. And I'll bring it back to one of my first points. You beat the Bengals that have been crippled by losing Joe Burrow. Fantastic. You should have got that win. Now do it when it really, really matters against those contenders. Not sure I'll be picking the Broncos to win this game, but I'll sure be rooting for them to win it, obviously. And like you mentioned, run between the tackles. Bo Nix, when you do go to throw, set your feet. Don't get too antsy. Make the throws you need to make in a clean pocket. Defense, no leak yardage like you mentioned. No suplexes, nothing silly like that. I'm a big pro wrestling fan, but I'd like to not see that on my football field. But all in all, you have to play a damn near perfect game, because if you slip, this team in the Eagles, they're going to take off on you and they will not look back. So just try and at the very least keep it respectable and keep it close.
Yeah, I think I'm not picking Denver to win this one. Unfortunately, I don't know what my score prediction will be, but it'll probably be a one-score game. I think my prediction will be like that. Obviously, there's a lot of ways that this can be a big win for the Eagles. Nick and I throughout the offseason, we talked about it before. We talked about it, a month ago. There's a lot with this Eagles team that can replicate what the Buffalo Bills did and what the Baltimore Ravens did last year. But I think the Broncos have improved in areas to keep that from happening. Obviously, we'll have to wait and see. I think it's going to be a close game. I don't think Denver's able to pull it out at the end, but I do think they look a little bit closer to being able to pull it out at the end, if that makes sense. Seeing a little bit more improvement here with that. But I think that's going to have to do it for us. Oh, Conga High just said, hope Mims doesn't fumble any punt returns. We didn't get into it, but the Broncos need to play clean on special teams because the Eagles have been not great on special teams, but they've had a lot of boom plays on special teams. The field goal unit, it's almost not worth trying to kick a field goal against this team when you have somebody like Jordan Davis, who's been great working the field goal block unit. But you got to go out there and execute on special teams, and that's all phases. Core 4 special teams, you got to go out there and execute, because this Eagles team is very adept at taking advantage, exploiting advantages, and making big plays happen, even though the consistency isn't always there.
Absolutely. I can't have anything like they did this past week, and luckily there was a penalty there, but again, this Eagles team will take advantage of that. They are not the Bengals. This is an actual contender.
They are well coached on special teams. They're well coached all around. And that's part of the reason why they're so successful. Super well coached. And then Kevin with the last second question. Should we play Pat Bryant more? I just have a feeling he's going to be a star in this league. I think they need to be looking at him more than a blocker. I think you need to look at reworking your wide receiver usage a little bit. Trent Sherfield was brought in for special teams and blocking, and he has not looked good at either. He's been decent, but he hasn't looked good. And Pat Bryant, there's still some issues with routes. I mean, he ran that absolutely terrible route on that fade against the Bengals. Absolute terrible route. But you've seen some flashes with him working over the middle. Issue is Bo Nix doesn't really like to work the middle of the field all that much. I would like to see him involved more, but have it come from reworking your wide receiver usage a little bit, giving him a little bit more reps and Trent Sherfield some a little bit fewer reps, and then trying to design a few plays for him working over the middle of the field, because he's shown some decent ability to pick up some good yards after the catch as well if you get him to the ball pretty quickly for it. And I mean, he's not a big space threat, but he can pick up yards after the catch. He's got the physicality and the strength to do that.
I'm down for any kind of shakeup that brings more production from any receiver in this room that isn't named Cortland Sutton. So hopefully we do see more Pat Bryant. He's a good chain mover. He proved that in college, and hey, maybe we see that translate to the NFL.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot. Broncos need more from this rookie class than they've gotten. I do got to say, Jahdae Barron played a really good game against the Bengals. He's one of the best defenders against the Bengals. So that was nice to see. RJ Harvey seemed like he's on that cusp of hitting that breakout. And Pat Bryant, we're seeing some flashes of him. And I got to say, Savion Jones finally saw some action. It was only 6 snaps, but I think he got a pressure on those 6 snaps and and had another big disruptive play. Like 6 snaps, very small sample size, but he showed those flashes. I'm ready to get Q Robinson out there. Jeremy Croshaw, he's been absolutely great as a punter. He's been like a top 5 punter in the NFL so far this year, if I remember correctly. So the rookie class, though limited, they're starting to show up, and hopefully the Bengals game was only the start of some great stuff to happen for them.
Yep, and one of my least favorite words, but I'm going to use it here. There's a lot of potential, and I'm very excited to see what some of these guys do as they get more playing time.
All right, Coach Chris came in at the last second with a gifting 10 Mile High Huddle memberships. We appreciate that, Chris. If you were in the chat and you were lucky enough to receive one of those gifted memberships, make sure you say thank you to Coach Chris for that. We appreciate you, Coach Chris, but that is going to have to do it for us today. Unfortunately, we cannot go for an hour. The biggest issue, or go for over an hour. The biggest issue is honestly Facebook. We can't publish our content to Facebook while we have a live stream. It creates a lot of issues. So Facebook's a big issue for a lot of things with it, unfortunately. But that's going to have to do it for us. As Coach Chris came in and said, hit that like and share button. Someone needs a new Lego Death Star. And super chat and gifted super chats as well. That money gets split between us. So super chats. Got to hit that $1,000 mark for the new Lego Death Star. I'll figure out somewhere to put it. Obviously, I can't replace the Venator that's here that you guys can't see. And I don't have anywhere else I can move the Falcon. Maybe I could put it over here where I have a Star Destroyer. I'll figure something out. I just got to get there first. $1,000. It's the biggest Star Wars Lego set ever. Got to get it. At some point I will. But anyways, thank you guys for coming in. That's all joking, by the way. Thank you guys for coming in. Before we get out of here, I do have some final words to say. As it says across the bottom, Scream Super Chats and YouTube stars on Facebook support the channel and your dedicated podcast hosts, and we appreciate them so much. As well as you guys can go over to youtube.com/@MileHighHuddle and become a YouTube member, where you can get access to exclusive content like Kelberman's Quarter and Broncos Book Clubs with some other stuff in the works. If you guys are unable to do that, we understand. Times are tough financially. You can just help us out by taking a matter of time, only about 15 seconds or so, to subscribe, like, and share. Those are ways that you can help us with the algorithms, especially on Facebook and YouTube, that are ever changing and ever being frustrating for us because of how often they are changing. You can go to Spotify and Apple Podcasts, again, taking just a matter of time, and leave a 5-star review for a chance to win some gear, not swag. I hate saying swag, every single month. You can follow us on Instagram @MileHighHuddle with an underscore between Mile and High and Huddle, or you can go to mhhmerch.com. With Christmas time coming, they make great gifts for other Mile High Huddle fans of yours that may be in their family and everything. But again, I understand times are tough financially, but you can go to mhhmerch.com to get your gear on, not swag. Again, I hate saying swag. You guys can follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/MileHighHuddlePod and facebook.com/MileHighHuddle, where that's where you guys get access to our wonderful Facebook community that we built up over the last 12 years, I believe is what it is at now, and get access to all of our written content. You can also follow us on Twitter @MileHighHuddle, which again, where you can get access to all of our written content at the MHH Pod and at BFB Pod, I think is what it is. I still haven't learned the Broncos for Breakfast podcast Twitter account handle yet. And you guys can access to all of our written content there, as well as reaching out to Dylan and I, giving us a follow on Twitter at Erick Trickel for myself, at Dylan Von Arx MHH for Dylan here. Before we get out of here, Dylan, any final words?
No, just hoping the Broncos, play some clean football and at the very least keep it close. But hey, let's hopefully get a win. Hopefully this is a trap game for those Eagles and the Broncos can have their confidence soar getting a win on Sunday.
Coach Chris said I could move that Falcon to him. I don't even want to imagine the cost of having to move it. But that thing took me a week to build. It is so big and so massive. And like the first 3 days, we're just building the frame for it. And he says, is that a little birdhouse in my soul? Yes, actually. I have a lot of stuff that my daughter makes that I have on display as well, besides Star Wars. There's a birdhouse that she made for Father's Day. And next to that is a custom-made pop figure that my wife got me for Father's Day of me. I have this over here that says, may the force be with you. A little chalkboard that they made me for Christmas. And then a drawing of a Minecraft cat. And then a little puzzle that's here as well that daughter made. So not only Star Wars, not only pop figures, but stuff that the kiddo makes for me as well on display. But thank you guys for joining in on that with us this morning. Nick should be back next Monday. We'll have to figure out next Wednesday still, as they're still going through with stuff with the move. We appreciate you guys for joining in. Hope you guys stay safe. Have a wonderful rest of your week. It's the hump day, so hopefully everything gets better the rest of this week and carries us into Friday, where you guys can catch me on Friday night on Dove Valley Divers. And I believe Dylan back on Saturday for Orange and Blue View.
Well, not this Saturday, but we're aiming for next week, so you guys will be seeing me quite a bit more here.
All right, so hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your week. Stay safe, and of course, make sure you guys choose kindness and compassion. Can't end that without saying Nick. Nick threatens me Nick threatens me to say that whenever he's not on the show. So, but anyways, choose kindness and compassion. Hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your week, and of course, go Broncos.